Hi, it's Alistair at Electric Scotland. This is introduction to my newsletter for the 10th of August 2018. First of all, I'll update you on how things are going with the site. I must confess, going slowly because we still haven't got FTP access, so I'm having to publish the site through my front page publishing program, and that's taking forever really. I notice I've just gone through the history directory, which is probably the single largest directory on the site. I've got tons of subdirectories under it with huge amounts of files, so that's now completed, so hopefully things will go a bit faster now. I'm finding that overnight, for some reason, the thing's timing out from the server. So when I get down in the morning, I'm finding I've got an error message and I've got to start the thing up again. So that's probably taking about 6 hours a day out of the publishing effort, so it's slowing things down a fair bit. Anyway, given how the rate's going, I think that Electric Scotland might well complete publishing over the weekend, which will give me a chance to check things out. And then on Monday we'll just redefine the DNS, and that should mean that from sometime on Monday, maybe Tuesday at the latest, we'll be live on the brand new hosting site for electricscotland.com anyway. Because we've still got electriccanadian.com to do, and still got to get the community back up and running. But at least we're making progress. Even though I'm not publishing information onto the site because of this publishing thing, I am continuing to do research, and I've found quite a lot of really good, interesting books, which I'll be adding once I'm back up on publishing again. So good stuff to look forward to there. And I'm obviously keeping up to date with the news, so this newsletter is mainly going to be news feeds, but I've put a good story up which I hope you'll enjoy in this week's edition. So essentially it's news and the story that you'll get in this week's newsletter. So without further ado, let me just run through the stories I've got for you this week. First one is the archive recording the House of Fraser story. This is a BBC kind of documentary article. It says the near future of House of Fraser is uncertain. A Chinese backer has pulled out because of his own financial difficulties, leaving the chain of department stores struggling to find a new investor with sufficient funds to pay the rent in September. It looks like they're going to fold, admittedly, but it's got a great history, and so I thought you might be interested in reading the story about them. The next story I've got is Chequers Effect blitzes every cabinet minister. It's over 10 years of surveying the top Conservative team. We have never seen anything like it. Every single cabinet member named in our last survey is down. I can well understand that, because to be honest with you, it looks like we've got a Remainer cabinet, whereas the people voted to leave. And quite frankly, that Chequers, it's just disgraceful. So, if you want to read that, you can. Next one I chose for you is Sir Patrick Stewart to reprise Star Trek role of Jean-Luc Picard. As a lot of us are Star Trek folk, we love Star Trek and all the stuff. Now, apparently there's meant to be a new series going to be coming out, which would be great. But anyway, this is an article about him, which again I thought was interesting. Then a bit of interesting news: Scottish scientists develop a satellite system is to improve extreme weather forecasting. It's great to see Scottish scientists getting involved in this, and of course we hope that the satellites they're going to be launching will be launched from our new satellite launching pad up in the north of Scotland. So all in all, a good story that. The next one which I thought was encouraging was UK government review backs subsidies for mini nuclear plants. It said Britain should offer developers of mini nuclear plants subsidies similar to those made available to the offshore wind industry. And I think this is great because I've been publishing news in the SIP area of the site about this idea of nuclear energy, because frankly they've got rid of most of the problems of waste and everything like that, and I think this would be absolutely marvellous. So again, it's a good story for you. Then why the no deal Brexit scaremongering is wildly overblown. Despite the hysteria, no deal will not mean the UK crashing out or going over a cliff. So if you think it's going to do all that, have a read of that story and that will maybe reassure you. Then another one I found of interest is the unreported story of Trump's Scottish weekend. It's by Kenneth Roy, who's the editor of the Scottish Review. And frankly, he's saying that what actually happened with Trump's visit was pretty mild, and yet the press would have you that it was a major contentious issue. But so, I mean, that's why I like the Scottish Review, because they do speak to me a lot of common sense. Then another one I thought might be of interest was International Cat Day. I didn't actually know there was an International Cat Day, but there was. And this is how cute felines all over the world are celebrating. It's a wee article from the Scotsman newspaper. Then one which I thought was good was Dalzell Steel Plant in Fightback. Scotland is at the forefront of the fight to win back the import-dominated UK market for heavy-duty steel, Finance Secretary Darren Mackay has been told. So a good story that, and another one you should read. Then I was reading one about, it's called The County Diary. It's on the hunt for some of the rarest trees in the world, of which some are actually in Scotland. And of course this, if you read that article, it will tell you about these very rare trees that we have up the Scottish glens and so forth. Then another one that tweaked my interest was portion of chips, 80% bigger than in 2002. A survey of takeaways in Glasgow has found the average size of a portion of chips has increased by more than 80% since 2002. But what I find wonderful about this article is that you're immediately getting the no-hopers in the government trying to say maybe we should have a standard size of chips which is smaller. Yet again, the nanny state comes into play. But there was an article last week about how after 15 years of trying to get Scots to eat healthier, it's been a total failure. And that's because you've got clever people with degrees and everything like that are out of touch with ordinary working people who frankly are very poor indeed and find difficult to make life livable. And so they're recommending you must eat all the fruit and veg, but fruit and veg costs a fortune. So rich, wealthy people can eat more fruit and veg, but poor people can't. And if they're not getting much to eat, they need to fill themselves up with something. And fruit and veg just doesn't do it. Stupidity of the highest order there. And if the nanny state gets in to regulise the size of your chip portion, they should be sacked. I'm actually sick fed up of these so-forward nanny people that think they can organise everything. Just plain stupidity, in my view. If that's what people want, let them have it. So you might want to read that article. And then one which I thought was encouraging was sea lice breakthrough for salmon farmers. You may know that there's been a huge wastage of salmon because of the sea lice problem. And it's all over the world, I might add. It's not just in Scotland, but as Scotland's a major exporter of farmed salmon, clearly it's a major problem for them. But they've got a bit of a breakthrough in the rearing of so-called cleaner fish to tackle sea lice. So it's a very interesting article and one that's got a lot of hope for the industry. The next one I read was Britain welcomes the new US sanctions on Russia over the Salisbury attack. says Britain has welcomed new US sanction on Russia in response to the nerve agent attack on a former spy in Salisbury in England. I mean, that's good news as well. So, I mean, you can't have people taking chemical blinking attacks into other countries. It's just not on. And then Chequers' plan could be illegal under the WTO rules. So David Collins is a professor of international economic law at City University of London and author of Negotiating Brexit, the legal basis for EU and global trade. So, you know, if the Chequers plan goes through and they find it's illegal, where are we then? You know, I mean, this is where May is so stupid. She doesn't go to people that know what they're talking about. She goes to her civil service advisors, who are obviously idiots. I mean, we already know the Treasury has come out with just ridiculous figures every time. You can't trust anything coming out of the Treasury now. Everyone decries the figures that they put out. It's just lies, lies and more lies. Just totally ridiculous. At time we could name and shame those civil servants. They're hiding behind anonymity of pathetic members of Parliament that are meant to be running their cabinets. I'm just so fed up with stupid MPs, I really am. However. And then another one which says what I've always felt, says Theresa May's Brexit team are cowards. Theresa May's Brexit team have been blasted as cowards by one of the biggest Leave donors, who's declared that no deal is the best option for Britain. Hear, hear, well done. And then to complement that, J.D. Wetherspoon launches new Brexit beer mats to press home pub chain founders' view that prices will be lower if Britain doesn't reach a trade deal with the EU. As I've said it before, coming out of the EU will be best for the poorest in the country. But Labour people who say they're socialists, they don't want better prices for food. They don't want the poorest to be a little bit better off. They don't care about them. They're elitists, these MPs, elitists and terrible people. So there you go. That's got me all het up, these ones. But these are the stories I picked, and obviously if you click on the link below to download the newsletter, there'll be links to all these stories that you can read and enjoy. And then basically the story for this week is jottings from the records of a farming society. This is something that's in the period 1809 to 1814, and it's rather interesting. At least these are the kind of stories I kind of like myself, simply because it gives you a feel for how people did things in the old days and how they were progressing. And I don't know whether there's things we can learn, because there's not that many local societies around in farming, and I think maybe they should start looking at how they used to have these old societies and how much good came out of it. It's quite a decent sized article. It's like in July 1812, the society held its 10th anniversary. At this meeting, wheat sowing in drill was warmly commended. A member remarked that the produce of wheat sown in this manner was 1/3 more than under the broadcast system. At the following meeting, Mr. Dempster, who had formally congratulated the members on the general disappearance of field weeds, recommended drainage as the most necessary of agricultural operations. He pleaded on behalf of crows that they destroyed grub and ought to be encouraged, a view strongly supported by Mr. Guthrie but objected to by Mr. Hendrick. Fjorren grass had at a former meeting been brought under discussion. The subject was revived, and among those who took part in the discussions was Mr. John Pinkerton, the antiquary, who, being Mr. Dempster's guest, was present as an honorary member. just to think to remark that Camden had referred in a field of thorn grass which was so fertile as to be cut 4 times a year. So these things are being discussed, and then people will go out and try them, and then we'd report back as to the results. Fantastic, absolutely great. And I might add that one of the reasons that America is very good at agriculture is that they had a Scottish Secretary for Agriculture, and he set in place a whole pile of agricultural colleges and research institutes, which basically are still there today. So the foundation that he laid all those years ago is still alive and well in America. Good on him. So there you go. That's the newsletter for this week. And I say, I'm hoping that by the end of the weekend I'll have finished publishing LabourScotland.com, and hopefully by Monday, maybe Tuesday, it'll be up and ready for you to look at on the new server. So progress is being made, and I'm still working on all the research for all the new books I'm going to be bringing you when I come back. So have a great weekend when it comes, and I look forward to any comments you want to send. Thanks.